Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's interview. I am joined by Councillor Naoise Cearúil from the Maynooth Municipal District. This is our 7th of 9 interviews, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've almost lost count. There are so many candidates. We're nearly there, guys. I know this is it's a slog getting through the election coverage everywhere, but hopefully this will be of use to you. Like I always say, you can get your bite-sized videos from anywhere. But a long form conversation with somebody you're looking to give your precious vote to is one of those things, and I hope it's valuable for you. So a little bit about Naoise. He was born and raised in Maynooth, County Kildare. He was educated in Leixlip, I think Kilcock as well, but certainly Maynooth as well. So he has strong ties to the local community. He was elected to Kildare County Council in 2014 at the tender age of 24. This is a young buck from Fianna Fáil. He was re-elected in 2019 and 2024, topping the poll in the Maynooth LEA with 1,880 votes. That was just a few months ago, so a clear demonstration of support for Naoise there. He served as Mayor of Kildare from 2021 to 2022. He has worked in the tech sector and he has experienced the commute personally. He is the founding chairperson of Gael Coláiste Manuid. He is a former chairperson of the board of Maynooth Community College. I need to take a breath. There is so much in this bio. He is a member of the board of management for Cearúil Community School, lives in Maynooth with his lovely wife and is soon to be a dad. And he has a campaign office on Cearúil Main Street where he joins us from tonight. So Naoise, will you say hello?
Thanks, Rasa. Hello to you and to everybody watching in this evening. I know it's really cold out there. We've been knocking on the doors, but I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you and to speak to everybody in Cearúil politics. I haven't had a chance to listen to all the previous ones, so I'm not sure what's going to come at me, but you've reassured me that nothing too far left field. But no, appreciate the introduction and also, Trasa, just to compliment yourself on everything you're doing in Cearúil politics. And also as well, the burst report that you compiled as well. So it's an issue particularly around water in Maynooth, Cearúil, Leixlip, you name it, in the north of the county. We're experiencing it, and that came in real use when we met with Irish Water and Kildare County Council. So thank you.
Good, you're welcome. So we're going to move on to a few questions. I have been looking at what you have been focusing on. And I know that you are, as I said in the intro, on the board of management for Cearúil Community School. So that is not, if I'm not mistaken, that's not one of the schools that's waiting on the Three Schools campus, correct?
So I am not on the board of Cearúil Community School. I was on the board of CC at its inception, the beginning of when it was first founded, because joint patron between the KWTB and also Educate Together. So I'm chair of the board of Gael Coláiste Manuid Secondary School for the north of the county, and then I was chairperson of the board of Maynooth Community College for 6 years and was part of the team to get the Maynooth Education Campus built. So that was the largest education infrastructure project in the state when it was built. So 2 large secondary schools with a capacity of 1,000 pupils each, and then a large sports hall in the middle. I'm not claiming credit for it, by the way. I was just chairperson of the board and played my small part in ensuring that those schools and that campus was delivered. And on that, Trasa, I suppose, just to continue, there's an ambition for a 3-school campus for Cearúil. And it's a case of getting that delivered, and it's a similar case across the board. When we look at the Gael Coláiste as well, we have money assigned for it, but it's a case of actually getting the school built. And when we look at the likes of MCC MPP, that took a protracted period of time to get those schools built, and it seems that there's just a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to getting critical school infrastructure built in general. And this isn't a nice to have, it's a have to have. Particularly when education is one of my core principles, core foundations in politics, and that's evidenced in what I've done as a county councillor. So for me, getting core social infrastructure delivered is a key priority for me. And even as a county councillor, it shouldn't fall on the likes of a county councillor to push these projects through, and naturally we do, not all of us, but a lot of us do. And those that are particularly invested in our communities and want to see the betterment. And I don't have any children yet. We're expecting our first child in February, so we're all excited. My wife's delighted that the election is next week and not in February, I could say. But it's just a core principle of mine and of my party is just that education is the great leveler, and it gives everybody the best opportunity in life, every child the best opportunity in life.
Okay, you have referred there to, and it's technically correct, to the Three Schools project as an ambition, and you focused on actually getting it delivered, and I appreciate that. We've been through COVID. We have been through the war in Ukraine. And when something in this country is declared an emergency, things move and things move quickly. At one point during the COVID crisis, almost the entire office-going workforce, and I'm sure others going to non-in-person roles that aren't in offices, logged on from home. Everything was completely upturned. The private sector really, really, really responded, and individuals and citizens responded. A similar situation with the Ukraine war and the welcome that we extended to people fleeing that war, and the accommodation that has been organised and the resources that have been put into that. What I'm getting at is schools around this country and the delivery of education is our emergency. It's a national emergency. I mean, you've got parents. You're about to go through it yourself, Naoise, and I don't mean to kind of preach from a position of knowledge, but just from a pure citizen point of view, let me tell you that you will be fighting every step of the way to make sure that whatever it is that your children need, in my case, whatever it is that my children need, can be supplied to them, and it shouldn't be such a fight. And when I hear something that children should have as a right referred to as an ambition, it sort of hurts a little bit. It's falling very funny with me. This talk about hopes, to deliver things that should be a right. A bridge is not a right, so that's a totally different thing. But education and schools, I mean, is it a case that we're going to be stuck with the same bureaucracy and layers of stuff that seems to get in the way up between a plan and delivery? Or what change can actually be made, in your opinion, to strip out some of that crap? I'm going to call it crap, because 20 years, I mean, you can build 600 houses inside 6 months if the incentive is there. So why can't we just deliver this thing? Excuse the ignorance of the question, but where is the bottleneck?
No, you're fine. And I am working with parents day in, day out, trying to help them, particularly at the moment, because all the school places are being assigned in all the secondary schools, and I have parents calling me worried about their children on waiting lists, be that for Woolstons or Salesians or CCS, and then Maynooth for MPP and MCC. And all of those children will get a place in secondary school. It's the most important thing to call out, but they shouldn't have to go. Children in primary school should not be worrying about what school they're going to go to next year. And it's incumbent on the secondary schools as well to work together to, I suppose, centralize the application process. And I've been saying this for a long time, because it's just not streamlined at the moment. And my background is in tech. I've been in the tech sector for 8 years, consulting some of the largest multinational companies, essentially as a project manager and a go-to-market advisor. And a lot of what goes on in Irish society when it comes to, be it schools or be it bridges or be it roads, there's no actual project management behind it. And if it were in where I work, I'd be out of my ear within 5 minutes. And I got in a lot of trouble saying that at the Kildare County Council meeting only 2 years ago. And it was published in the Leinster Leader, and it caused quite a bit of controversy, but it's true. And when we look at the issues coming up on the door in general, right, and it doesn't matter where it is in this constituency, it could be Cearúil, it could be Johnstown Bridge, anywhere in between, we have seen the growth in a huge amount of houses, right? There's no denying that there is an enormous amount of houses being built. Just look around Cearúil, look around Maynooth, look around Leixlip. What hasn't been happening is the social and physical infrastructure hasn't kept pace. And that's not just schools, that's creches, that's GPs, that's Gardaí. From the social infrastructure point of view, it's also the likes of playgrounds. Like there's one, excuse my language, crappy playground in Cearúil.
Yep.
There's a desperate need for a proper playground in the town. my own wife can't get a GP in Maynooth. She has to go to Clane. We're expecting, as I said, our child in February. We're in a waiting list the following year when she wants to go back for childcare. We're on a waiting list for the following year, and the child hasn't even been born yet. So, like, these are impacting me. Like, I've grown up in this area. I'm from this area. I've chosen to live my life here. I've chosen to represent my community from a very young age up until now, and hopefully will continue to. And I think that's where our focus needs to be. It needs to be on delivery of the social and the fiscal infrastructure. And what hasn't been happening, in my view, is proper forward planning. And there's a forward planning team in the Department of Education, there's a forward planning team in Kildare County Council, but it doesn't seem to be synced up. Now, both of those bodies do meet up, don't get me wrong, I think it is on a monthly basis, but I'm talking infrastructurally, I'm talking Irish Water, I'm talking Airgrid, I'm talking all of these state bodies are not talking to one another. And what that's causing is absolute silos in towns and villages, and to be honest, throughout the country. I don't think it's unique to Selbridge or to Kildare North. I think this is a countrywide issue, and I think that needs to be addressed head on. If we're really to overcome the main challenges, and I do think, the Minister for Housing, the next Minister for Housing, will have a role to play in that, because the Minister for Housing also has a responsibility for local government, and by having a responsibility for both housing and local government, we can bring these different bodies together. And I think that's really what's missing. It's this kind of and again, it's my project management mind coming into it. It's this kind of project managing the growth of a town, the growth of an area. And if we look at local area plans, we've just finished the one for Maynooth. Now it's still going through the final stages, but the core of the document has been completed. It's essentially a land use plan. Now we're putting in aims and objectives of how we want that land to be used. But really, we're curtailed in what we can do, because all we're really doing is zoning land and giving our aspirations for that. And sometimes that can be confused for this will happen, right? So because it's in an LAP or because it's in a county development plan, a CDP, this is going to happen. It doesn't mean that something's going to happen. It's reliant on the funding. And that comes back to, if we look at Selbridge and Maynooth, and two of the largest infrastructural projects that have been talked about in both of these towns, and I'm 35, before I was born, right, for over 40 years, has been the ring road around Maynooth and the second bridge for Selbridge. Now, it's taken me, and I'm not going to claim full responsibility for this, but I'll take a lot of responsibility. It's taken me 8 years to be able to get the ring road around Maynooth progressed. And it's starting in February and March. So if you come in from Selbridge to Selbridge Road, take a right just before the Educate Together. Now, that's a huge amount of work, but back 6 years ago, we actually rezoned that land to get LIHAF funding, which is Local Infrastructural Housing Adaptation Fund. Then now I'm looking at Selbridge, and it's coming up time and time again, the second bridge, and it's just so frustrating. It's like, how has this not been progressed? And sorry.
You're right. I mean, how has it not been progressed? Indeed, and now call me a skeptic. But the parties in government have empathised with comments that have come in on the interviews, and if I make a point about it or whatever, empathised it, and everybody seems very well able to explain the problem, and indeed to insist that this is now about delivery, and I'm hearing that it's just falling a bit empty. You're standing for Fianna Fáil, who have been in government for quite a long time, in partnership and in various modes, but Fianna Fáil are most certainly a prominent party. Are your own party aware that it's about delivery, is the first question. And the second question is, why isn't it happening already if they are? That's what concerns me, because I suspect that the state itself and the processes and procedures and the layers and layers that were added on in years when we didn't have these population pressures in Selbridge and we didn't have these issues with infrastructure and traffic, those rules and those processes aren't effective anymore, and an emergency has evolved. I don't know if you're familiar with the expression to boil a frog. A frog gets boiled super slowly. It'll never jump out of the pot because the water rises slowly. We're just like a bunch of 20,000 boiled frogs in Selbridge. And I get frustrated when I hear someone completely agree with me that it's about delivery, if you'll forgive me being skeptical. But why can't it just be treated like an emergency now? Why is it 6 years for the bridge,
And look, I'm very solutions focused, Trasa, right? And I agree with you. Empty words sometimes can, and particularly when people say things time and time again. And one thing I would say, I don't make promises, right? I never make promises. I make commitments that I'll work as hard as I can to try and deliver something. And it's very difficult for one politician in order to get a delivery of anything, right? But I've been quite successful in getting a huge amount of delivery in my hometown in Maynooth, and I'm using that as a track record, to be honest, in terms of what I can actually do for Selbridge. When you speak of emergency, the other thing to bear in mind, and Fianna Fáil have only been in government for the past 4 years, and I think that's important to call out, whereas Fine Gael have been in government for 14 years.
Yep.
But 4 years, and in that time, prior to taking the housing ministry, there was 20,000 houses a year being built. There's now close to 40,000 houses a year being built. Is that enough? No. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge there's been a housing crisis and there's been a huge demand. Our population has increased. And I think the focus has been, whether rightly or wrongly, we just need to build houses, right? We're all talking about housing all the time, and rightfully so. People to be able to buy, to be able to have affordable housing and affordable rents as well, because some people prefer to be in a position or are in positions where they're renting rather than buying. In terms of getting, and just come back to directly answer your question, your question about, would say, the likes of the second bridge, like I've stayed on top of the ring road. I've had to be on top of it every single week. Like I have a spreadsheet literally progressing the development every single meeting I have, follow-ups every single week with different departments, not just in Kildare County Council, in order to get this progressed. And it takes somebody like that on the ground sometimes in order to get things progressed. And I don't think that's happened with the second bridge in Selbridge.
So are you committing to the people watching and to people whose vote you're asking for that you will be a complete and utter pain in the ass to every part of the bureaucracy that is holding up these projects for Selbridge, for North Kildare, actually, because I know Leixlip, Maynooth, all of the areas all around are screaming out for different things. I personally feel that Selbridge is a case in point. I could give you data on why I think that Selbridge is a little bit special and needs a little bit more urgent attention. That'd be my point of view. I'm happy to fly the Selbridge flag on that. But will you commit to the people watching that you're going to go in there not to make friends, but to make decisions and make delivery happen and be a proper pain in the ass. You're a very articulate person. You're young and you're super energetic. And we really need an energetic pain in the ass to get a few things done. How do you feel about committing that?
Yeah, so Trasa, if you were to speak to any of the directors in Kildare County Council, I think they would have tested them a pain in the ass already to try and get progressed and get things done. Okay. And the same in the likes of Irish Water and in different departments as well. So I'm more than happy to commit to something I'm doing already and to expand that to Selbridge. And look, it takes that, it needs that. And what I will say, in fairness to the former TD Emmett Stagg, Lord rest him, he was like that. He was dogged and he'd keep going. And one thing I learned from him, I remember, he told me about one particular issue, a housing issue. He just kept at this person, and eventually he was able to get a resolution. And look, that's coming from another party, but you have to respect, I suppose, some of the tactics and how other politicians go about things as well sometimes. And he was able to get results for the people of this constituency.
So you'll be at it hammer and tongs for us then, and I'll take that as a win. I'm going to turn to a few of our comments because a good few have come in. If you're watching, guys, smash that like button. Let Naoise know you're here and drop a comment in, even just to say hello. I know it's not as easy for Naoise being in the seat he's in. He has to answer the questions. I just get to sit here reading comments. It's fantastic. Lulu says, I know Naoise is held in very high regard in Maynooth and has ran an excellent campaign so far, especially on social media. I'm never usually a Fianna Fáil voter, but believe he is a great rep. How can he convert non-Fianna Fáil voters to vote for him? Well, by listening to interviews like this one, let's hope, Lulu. I'll keep going because there's a few of them, Naoise, so I'll read them all out. It'll be great for him to do the same for the Selbridge community, says Erin Cearúil. Oh, Erin Cearúil, there's a familiar surname. I wonder if there's any relation. Catherine Temple says, that's all great to hear, but it's your government who's in power. Okay, I have actually asked this question myself, but I'll read it out. It's your government who's in power. Why haven't they pushed it through? We can't even get a response as to what the holdup is. Why should we trust that? If you get in, you will get it done. So I've asked, that's asked and answered, but a point not unlike my own, Catherine. Another comment, I think I really think we need change in Kildare North, new TDs, but new thinking. Listening to Naoise, genuinely reckon he has the head to do it. Well, that's lovely. Catherine is in. Fianna Fáil was in power. Yeah, I was going to make that point. Fianna Fáil was in power before Fine Gael took over 14 years ago, and many of these issues are several decades old. So fair point there, Catherine, but I think Naoise has acknowledged the failings. Donna says, Naoise has done so much for our community groups and worked so hard in Maynooth. He deserves to be given a chance to make real change at national level. Our previous TDs have allowed this crisis to happen. It's time for a change, a fresh set of eyes who can represent young working families in this area who have the same issues as we do. And Brian says he'll be a pain in the ass, but he'll be our pain in the ass. Go on, Naoise. I knew there was a go on, Naoise coming in from Brian. Go on, Brian. I knew it hit there somewhere. It was either hook Naoise or go on, Naoise. So there you go. There you have it. Lovely support, Naoise, in the comments. So that should be very heartening. We'll keep going.
And what I will, I just want to answer Catherine's question, to be fair.
By all means, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, Catherine, like, I acknowledge that Fianna Fáil have been in government for the past 4 years and under the housing brief. But we've had a pandemic, and that's not to use an excuse, and we've been in a housing crisis. And I think it has been a case of just get the houses up, right? Rightly or wrongly. I think that's essentially what's happened. And we're now playing catch up, in particular with the social and physical infrastructure. And it is historical as well, but particularly now, I think it's acute. And to be honest, being in Fianna Fáil, I would like to see us in government. And being a government TD means I would have direct access to ministers and be able to deliver more for Celbridge and for Kildare North.
Thank you for that. And I do appreciate you addressing Catherine directly. Moving from a place where we might slightly disagree to a place where I think we would probably agree wholeheartedly, Naoise, I would like to talk about Kildare County Council's underspending. Now, I did a report, as I'm sure you know, called the Tetris report way back, where I took the data from KCC's capital spend over the course of 5 years and analysed it to look at where the money was being spent. I want to think about all of North Kildare in this question. Although Celbridge had the very worst percentage spend, there is generally an issue with deploying the financial resources that are decided upon by our elected representatives on our behalf every year. I want to talk about it because I cannot find a trace of Kildare County Council challenging central government for more resources. Now, I can't find it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And in fact, I spoke to another competitor of yours just last night who said that in fact it does exist, and I'll intend to follow that up. But talk to me about Kildare County Council, the operation of the executive. What is going on that resources or lack of resources seems to be the reason for everything being delayed? Everything that's within KCC's remit is on a go slow because of this.
So first of all, that has definitely been requested, because I was mayor of the county when I remember that was requested on 2 occasions. That was back in 21-22, and more recently it has been requested. I think it's an annual request, to be fair, from the Director of Finance in KCC. So
that's my understanding. All the more reason I'm confused why, as a citizen asking for that information under FOI, I didn't get it, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, continue. Thank you.
From memory, Trasa, it's a fairly, like, it's a pretty, 2 paragraphs. It's not as if it's 20-page document from memory, from reading it. And that was a while ago. But in terms of the spend, not just from the council, but I think from various government departments as well, there's 2 reasons that more funds have been spent in the south of the county rather than the north of the county. One is based on the CSO figures, that the south of the county is more deprived and the north of the county is affluent. This is based on the average household income. Now, that doesn't wash with me. As much as it might be true, it doesn't take into account the population increase, the population density that we have in the north of the county. And a simple example of that is, you look at Maynooth and Celbridge, there's no community centre. You look at Maynooth and Leixlip, there's no primary care centre. I just spoke with a family earlier on, and they have 3 children, one in 6th class, and he's never had a dental appointment by the HSE here locally in Celbridge. Now, that just boiled my blood completely. They've had to take him privately, but they had the means, thankfully. But what if they didn't have the means? Like that is just wrong. And then the second thing, so between the CSO, between affluency and being deprived, according to those figures, the second thing is historically the power in the county was down the south of the county, and I think that's traditionally where going back, even when I got into the council 10 years ago, it seemed that a lot was happening down in the south of the county, and even the Athy Distributor Road, for example, a huge investment down the Athy. And look, I'm not begrudging any other town or village for investment, but what I'm saying is there needs to be more equity when it comes to that spend. And a good example of that equity spend, Trasa, is when you look at local property tax, and the local property tax intake in the north of the county far outweighs the south of the county, but we actually split it equally by the 5 municipal districts. And that means, Athy, for example, gets the same as Leixlip Celbridge, gets the same as Clane Maynooth. But I do think we might need to revisit that based on the different central spend by Kildare County Council in those areas, as opposed to, excuse me, the LPT spend. And I will say as well, Naoise gets a significant investment as well from the central funds.
Why?
I think because it's the county town. I think it is a tradition of spending things there. We look at Cardiffstown, the huge investment there, and I look at the north of the county, and it still doesn't have a swimming pool, for example, whereas Athy, Newbridge, and Naoise have swimming pools, but yet 65 million was spent on the Cardiffstown redevelopment. Now, I've been able to advance the swimming pool massively in Maynooth. Now, it's still not there yet, don't get me wrong, but that's a retrofit, about 12 million, which is small fry in comparison. But to be honest, even that is not significant enough. It's not big enough for Celbridge, Leixlip, Maynooth. And on that as well, Trasa, what I will say is sometimes we work in silos, particularly in these three towns. And I'll include Kilcock and Clane as well, but particularly Leixlip, Celbridge and Maynooth. And we really need to be a bit more strategic and thinking together. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the interchange at Leixlip, where at Intel, where the roundabout was taken out, it's now T Junction.
Yeah.
I think that would be an ideal location for a large municipal sports complex or swimming pool for the three towns, right? Because it's accessible for both Maynooth, Leixlip, and Celbridge. And there doesn't seem to be any of that type of forward thinking, that kind of strategic thinking from the council. Yes, as councillors, we have a role to play in that, don't get me wrong, and it's up to us as a community and as community leaders to suggest ideas like this. But there doesn't seem to be an energy within Kildare County Council to really boost the north of the county and northeast of the county in particular. And I don't think there's acknowledgement there that there has been a significant underspend. And I'll give you a good example. The council have purchased the lands at Donnacomper here in Celbridge, and that's been a significant investment, don't get me wrong. And they're in the process of purchasing the lands, the parochial house. The idea is an arts and cultural centre. I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
And the park in the Donnacomper lands. Now, we don't have a plan, we don't have a strategic plan yet of how they're going to be delivered and when they're going to be delivered, right? So what use is having that land if we can't use it? Do you know what I'm saying? That should have been done in tandem, a public consultation around the lands of Donnacomper, a public park with a proper playground, possibly access into Castletown, and then an arts and cultural centre in the parochial house. There's none of this real kind of just little bit of out of the box thinking.
Are you saying that they should have lined up the public consultation on a master plan for Donnacomper with the purchase itself?
Yeah,
because I've seen again under FOI, I have seen the evolution of that purchase process, and I don't think that would have been technically possible to do the two things in synchrony, if you get me. Now, what I would appreciate is if Kildare County Council would now give us a date when that public consultation will start. At least at the moment they're saying, it's coming, or it'll be next. And it's this, whenever I hear things like that with just fuzzy dates all in the future, it makes me nervous, and I don't think my grandchildren are going to be using Donnacomper. And so I think there's quite a big risk with KCC feeling like, well, now we've sorted out Celbridge because we're after buying Donna Comper, and that was
Mm.
significant. Yes, it was significant. Yes, it is appreciated. But what we actually were asking for, if you'd been listening, you know, I'd say to the executive, not to the councillors, I think the councillors understand this, is we need solutions to problems now. We need
Yeah.
somebody to cut turf on that bridge. We need a second playground installed pronto, and we need to pause some of the more difficult housing developments until the infrastructure catches up a little bit. So that's how I feel about it anyway.
And just to add to that, that's the piece about being a pain in the ass. That is exactly where the likes of a councillor or indeed a TD needs to be a pain in the ass and ensure the delivery. And you know, I'm very focused, as I said, my experience in project management: who, what, where, when, why, how. Give me timelines. Don't give me fluff. Give me the facts. And that's what we need. And you know, as I mentioned, my tab that I have based on the ring road to Maynooth, I have the same about the swimming pool, the same about the Gael Clash to getting the permanent building. I have the same on different larger infrastructural projects. It keeps me honest. It keeps me on track. But it also means I can see exactly where things are progressing, and more importantly, if they're not progressing.
Okay. Well, good. Look, it sounds like you understand at the very least, and I mean, I know that nobody can build Rome in a day. I just hope that somebody can build a playground within 5 years. That's why. That's all we're asking for, and we're looking for somebody with just your kind of energy to make it happen. I'm going to go back to the comments because we have another few in. This is another busy interview. Comments are lovely. Oh, I have something lovely. A Fine Gael councillor, the Leixlip Fine Gael, beg your pardon, Celbridge Fine Gael councillor Lumi Panite Fahy. So not in the same party as you, but has still come in with a supportive comment. She said, I witnessed Naoise in action in our full council meetings when I was freshly elected. I just wanted to say I admire his debates and his articulate arguments. I wish him the best. I wish him the best of luck, and same to all candidates. That's just very, very sportsmanlike. Patrick says Naoise would be a really strong voice for Kildare North. Dee says, hey Naoise, so delighted you really are a voice for North Kildare. With you on our side, I'm sorry, it moved. Here we are. With you on our side, we will all have a better life in Kildare. Anne says, North Kildare historically are being starved of capital expenditure. We in Maynooth, Celbridge, Kilcock and Leixlip are the very poorest of towns when it comes to public finances investment. We were better served in Maynooth in the 70s with a community centre, Garda presence, dental, I could go on. North Kildare urgently need Naoise Cearúil in government. My experience working on community committees is that Naoise gets things done. He just will not stop until he gets it done. We cannot continue with the same. We have to vote for proven, hardworking, community-centred and visible, known hardworking candidates, and that is Naoise. I don't think you could find more glowing praise. I'm waiting for someone to come in with something controversial, but outside of the couple there at the start, which are challenging, you know, challenging comments, which are also welcome, guys, don't be afraid. Lovely bit of support in the comments. Where are we for time? All right, we're coming close. I want to spend a very limited amount, unfortunately, it has to be a very limited amount of time on each of two subjects. And one of them is way outside your bailiwick. So this is kind of coming from left field a little bit. Are you aware of what happened with Sensational Kids in Kildare? Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I'm not fully au fait with it, Trasa, but
Okay.
I did read a headline where development had stopped on the new special school for sensational kids in Newbridge.
It has stopped.
Yeah.
The reason I raise it with you is just to get a one sentence take on that, but also to let you know and to let anybody who's watching know that because of some rules and technicalities in the process around the funding being made available for this, a building was halfway up when the plug was pulled. That's kind of the bottom line. But there is such a dearth of special needs assistance, people with disabilities, children suffering with ADHD and autism, and people waiting for diagnoses. Actually, I heard an interesting thing the other day. Somebody said you shouldn't call it a diagnosis, you should call it an identification. And I thought that was lovely because the two things ring very differently. But anyway, the identification of these needs in children. I just wanted to make sure I put it on your radar. Have a little look at it. I know it's outside the constituency, but if there's anybody you can reach out to give those guys a hand, my God, it is so deserved. And finally, we moved to Castletown. The drum I've been beating all week. You and I have never had a conversation about Castletown, I don't think. Have we in person, or
No, I
I
don't.
don't remember. Okay, now I know you've been on it,
Mm.
but I don't think that you and I have talked about it. So this is fresh for me. What do you think about CPOing the land, the 235 acres?
So I'd like to answer the question on sensational kids, but I'll answer
Yeah.
just that one directly. I think, yeah, so we do need to, I think we need to CPO the lands. My fear, Tras, is just how long the CPO process takes. And I think we need to be upfront and honest about that. I do think we need to find a temporary solution, and this has been going on far too long. And look, I know the likes of Fifi and other people have been speaking about access at Ballylangley and also into the Kildare Innovation Campus. I indeed met with the Kildare Innovation Campus literally a few days after being selected to run for general election to see if it was a runner or not. I've been meeting with the Director of Roads in KCC to see if it's a runner. And if it is a runner, it's only a temporary measure. It's only a plaster until we CPO the lands. Because the lands need to be reunited, they need to be as one. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be the OPW that is the protector of those lands. There are other state bodies that could look after those lands, and I think that's probably a conversation for another day. There's the likes of the Royal Irish Georgian Society. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I do think the
Well,
OPW
I don't know about the IGS, but there's certainly KCC, Quilcha,
exactly.
we do have some experience in this. We have precious lands all over the place. So I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to, to make that switch if we absolutely had to. Do you think that's something that's worth looking at, stepping OPW aside and bringing in Quilcha or KCC? I mean,
100%.
Quilcha managed the Donadee Forest. I'm sorry to cut across you, but geez, I wind up like a toy with this subject. Wheelchair manage Donaghy. You go in, there's a barrier, you swipe your wheelchair card or you tap and pay your €5 to go in and use the car park. The land is just breathtaking. It is well managed, it is safe, it is accessible, nobody is locked out of it. The opening hours are reasonable. I just don't understand why OPW are so precious and so exclusive in how they manage the domain lands, the part of it that they own. So yeah, do you think it would be worth looking at bringing another management
I
company
think
in?
so. I honestly think so. I think now it could be a case where the OPW actually manages the house, and then
Yeah,
the likes of Quilter would manage the grounds. I think it would have to be something like that because OPW are the experts in fairness when it comes to conservation
yes, they are.
of protected buildings. So I think some sort of agreement like that definitely needs to be investigated. I've been saying this for a while. I was hesitant to come out publicly, I suppose, strongly against the OPW because they do a lot of good work in a lot of areas, but there's been a lot of controversy, far too much controversy. We don't know, individuals. Even if you were to change the name, the OPW, the actual structure of it is still there. So I do think we need to, particularly when it comes to Castletown, I think we need to look at it at a separate approach. And also, that's not to take the attention away. I think a subcommittee to maybe look at that would definitely be beneficial as well. I just answer your question really, really quickly on the sensational kids and special education, Trasa.
Thanks. Yes.
This is probably this is coming up in about 1 in 5 doors, special education in general. Like my mum works in Stepping Stone Special School in Maynooth. Prior to that, she worked in Stewart's Care for 35 years. So I'm acutely aware of people with intellectual disabilities, both here in John O'Gall's and Selbridge, and indeed in Stewart's, and people out in the community as well. But special education is key. Early intervention is key. CDNT, CAMS, like there's a range of issues here.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be an explosion in the amount of people that have been diagnosed with different neurodiverse, I suppose ADD, ADHD, autism, etc. And I think it's a positive thing in the way that we're getting these diagnoses so that these children and families can identify and then look for the care that they need. But families shouldn't be fighting for the resources that they want for their children, that they deserve, and sorry, is a right for each of these children. Now, what Fianna Fáil have committed to is creating a centralised system, particularly when it comes to schools and special schools and ASD units and also SNAs to try and deal with this, because I do think this around special education and also around the entire neurodiverse area it's going to have to be one of the most important issues in the next programme for government, regardless of who goes into government. And for me, that is like literally top 3 issues.
Absolutely. I mean, it said a lot to me that for some, and I stand to be corrected on this. If anybody in the audience can correct me, please do. I don't like getting things like this wrong, but as far as I recall, it's for some reason the Department of Justice is the part of the government that pulled that is involved and that ended the program and that is kind of a decision maker in all of this. Although I believe they say they're not, so I grant them that. That's not it. That's not under Fine Gael. That's McKenty, isn't it? That's Helen McKenty. That's
That
Fine
might be
Gael.
justice, but I'm pretty sure it's under the Department of Children, which would be Rodrigo Gorman.
It would another department that warrants a whole another hour, Naoise, of discussion. But I think it was the Department of Justice that organised the funding programme for some reason, under which Sensational Kids got their funding. They terminated it, but delays, etc., meant that the cost of the build went up. I'm not an expert on it, and I don't want to do it an injustice, but just be aware that sometimes when a community outside the government says, right, if the government aren't going to do it, we'll solve it ourselves, the government can still find a way to mess it up. And that seems to be what has happened here. It's heartbreaking listening to that lady today. Have a look at it. I'll go to a couple of quick comments then, and then I'll be wrapping us up. Anne says, where did she go? It always jumps around when I scroll the comments. Delighted to see that Naoise has opened a constituency office in Cearúil. Not a constituency office yet, Anne, although you obviously have a hopeful mindset, and that's a nice sign for Naoise. He is committed to North Kildare towns and will work for one and all. Jean says, no to Cuilcha. Selling our land. Okay, this is in relation to getting rid of OPW and putting somebody else in. Selling our land to UK agencies to make a buck growing non-native Sitka. So this is the type of spruce, isn't it? No way. Very biodiversity unfriendly, but yes to saying goodbye to OPW. Irish Woodland Trusts do excellent and sound work. So there you are. So let's just not jump to conclusions on who else should do it. Mick says, the last election, we've heard all this before. Cearúil has nothing in it and left behind, and it's just being used for housing. What are you going to do for Cearúil? Okay. And Owen comes in and he says, hi, Naoise. Hey, Naoise, as someone with a disability, I rely quite heavily on public transport. Could you talk about what you've done in that area? As a neurodivergent person, I really appreciate all the work you've done for people with autism in Kildare. Thanks very much, Owen, Mick, Jean, and Anne there, and everyone else. I'm sorry if there's anybody whose comments I didn't get to. I'm sorry. We are running short on time. We've hit a lot of subjects there with those comments. Do you want to take a moment on them?
So just Jean, I suppose we're taking suggestions here. It doesn't necessarily have to be Cuilcha. If it was Cuilcha, they wouldn't be able to, plant Silca and obviously use it as a forestry. It would have to be obviously to preserve the lands and protect the lands of Castletown. And the Irish Woodland Trust would be excellent as well. So I think it's a wider conversation. Mick, in terms of getting things done for Celbridge, as Trassa said there in the comments, I've opened a campaign office. And the reason I've opened the office here in Celbridge, not in Maynooth, but I do intend, if I get elected, to open an office in Maynooth as well, is to prove to the community that I'm serious about Celbridge. I care about Celbridge, I hear you, and I want to get things done here. And there's been no political office in Celbridge for a long time. Other TDs have had the opportunity to open here and they haven't. I'm saying I have already, and I've shown that commitment. And I will do whatever I can to get delivery for Celbridge. And then to own just around transport issues, and thanks for your kind comment around my help with people with neurodiversity. I suppose one of the things, and I'm not going to claim full credit, but definitely is the W61 bus. I put in a huge shift in getting that delivered in the first instance, which goes from the Maynooth Education Campus, because I was chairperson of schools there, all the way to Celbridge and then up to Hazelhatch, which is key for children obviously going to school and in the education campus, but also for commuters going from Celbridge to Hazelhatch, notwithstanding the issues with that bus leaving as people come in the train. I'm fully aware of that, and that needs to be addressed as well. The bus needs to hold on for trains, it needs to be timed better, and that will actually go on to W6 and go on to Tala as of Sunday. So look, I think I've addressed those three issues very quickly, Trassa, and I hope I've addressed them adequately.
You have, don't worry, they're all there in black and white underneath this video. I'm going to thank everybody, actually, is the first thing I'll do for the comments. Like, even for me, can I just take a totally selfish moment? When you're doing an interview and you can see that people want to put their concerns across, it's very validating for me, because it has been a quiet election, folks. It is a yawny sort of election, and when you have a dynamic discussion with an excellent guest, and you have the comments coming in as well, I genuinely thank you for that. Naoise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand back to you for a parting word to the audience, and then I will wrap us up. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tressa. And look, thanks to you. I've really enjoyed the interview or debate or whatever you want to call it. And,
I
and I
took a
appreciate.
few bites actually in the end, Nisha. Sorry
That's
about
fine, and
that.
look, that's to be expected. And I think we need to question anybody that's going for election, what their intentions are and how they plan on delivering, because we have heard empty promises in the past, and that's why I don't give promises. It's commitments to actually try my hardest. And thanks to everybody for listening in, for your comments, be it both positive and questioning. I think that's important. But look, folks, at the end of the day, I've worked my backside off in Maynooth in the past 10 years. I'll be that pain in the ass, not just for Maynooth, but for Selbridge, for Leixlip, for Clane, for Kilcock, for Naas, for the entire constituency. Johnstown Bridge, Prosperous, Kill, Strafford, Airclough. You can go through them all. But the main point of this is we need somebody strong from the area, for the area, that can get delivery, that has proven that they can get delivery. And I'm asking you all humbly for your number one vote next Friday, or your highest possible preference. Garumina Bagov.
Well, that was a conversation and a half. We stuck to our subjects, but we kind of got right into it. I really enjoyed that. So thank you, Naoise, for being our guest tonight and for bringing your voice and giving us this valuable time. As I've said throughout this week, I'm aware that you're campaigning. I'm aware that you're needed on doors, and yet you gave us this hour. So thank you very much for that. I really enjoyed the conversation. So everybody, Naoise Cearúil is looking for your number one vote on November 29th. I'm going to wrap us up. I will see you again tomorrow. There has been a schedule change tomorrow. Tomorrow's morning interview will be at 12:30 actually, so just in the afternoon, and our evening interview as usual. But that's it from us for tonight. Thank you very much and take care. Ihawa.
Iwa, come on.